The rancher ordered a bride, but her sister stepped off the wagon instead. Clara had always known that life for her family was never easy, but she had never imagined that it would take her so far from home. She had grown up in a small, quiet town in the Midwest, where everyone knew each other's names and doors were rarely locked. Her family worked hard on the farm, tending the fields, caring for animals, and making sure there was always enough to eat. Her parents were kind but strict, and they expected Clara and her younger sister Lydia to be responsible and obedient. Clara had always been the dependable one, the one who finished her chores on time, who helped her mother with the cooking and cleaning, and who quietly put her own dreams aside for the sake of her family. She liked the order of their life, even when it was hard, and she had never really thought about leaving the familiar comfort of home. But now, everything was about to change. Her father had received a letter from a rancher in Montana, a man who owned a large property far away from their quiet town. He had been widowed some years ago and was looking for a woman to marry him, someone who could manage the household, help care for his children, and bring warmth back to his home. The letter was formal, almost businesslike, and it offered a promise of a new life, a fresh start in a place so different that Clara could barely imagine it. Her father had discussed it with the family, and after careful thought, they had agreed. Clara was to be the bride, traveling west to meet a man she had never seen, to step into a life that was completely unknown. At first, Clara was frightened. The thought of leaving everything she had ever known, the soft green fields, the familiar faces, the little wooden house that had been in the family for generations, filled her with anxiety. But alongside the fear was a strange excitement, a sense that maybe this journey could be the beginning of something extraordinary. She tried to imagine what it would be like to live on a ranch, to wake up every day surrounded by open land and animals, to take care of a household in a way that mattered. It was frightening, yes, but it was also thrilling. Clara had always been practical, but she also had a small spark of curiosity, and that spark was growing brighter with every passing day. Lydia, on the other hand, felt differently. She was younger, more impulsive, and full of energy that often got her into trouble at home. She loved adventure and longed for freedom, but she had never imagined leaving the town either. When she heard that Clara would be traveling to Montana, she had insisted on coming along, even though her parents initially refused. Lydia's pleas were endless, her determination fierce. She did not want to be left behind while her sister ventured into a new life. After long discussions, her parents relented, though reluctantly, allowing Lydia to accompany Clara on the journey. Lydia's presence added both joy and tension to the trip. She was lively, curious, and sometimes reckless, while Clara was careful, organized, and thoughtful. The sisters were very different, but their bond was strong, and they relied on each other as they prepared for the long journey ahead. The day they left was crisp and bright, with a sky so blue that it seemed to stretch endlessly. The wagon was packed with essentials, blankets, food, cooking supplies, and a few cherished possessions from home. Clara made sure everything was in order, checking and double-checking that nothing was forgotten. Lydia, in contrast, flitted about, laughing and pointing at every bird and tree along the road, her excitement uncontainable. Clara tried to keep her focus, reminding Lydia of the importance of being careful and staying close, but she could not help smiling at her sister's enthusiasm. Despite the differences in their temperaments, they were united by the journey and the sense that life was about to change forever. The first days on the trail were both exhausting and exhilarating. The wagon jolted over rough roads, kicked up clouds of dust, and creaked under the weight of their supplies. They traveled through small towns, past rolling fields, and alongside rivers that sparkled in the sunlight. Clara kept a careful journal of their progress, noting the landscapes, the people they met, and the challenges they faced. She wanted to remember everything, knowing that once she reached the ranch, life would be entirely different. Lydia, meanwhile, made friends with other travelers, traded stories, and laughed at the smallest things. Her laughter was infectious, and even Clara found herself laughing along, forgetting her worries for a little while. But the journey was not without hardships. The weather was unpredictable. Scorching sun one day, sudden rainstorms the next. They had to navigate muddy trails, cross streams, and deal with tired horses that sometimes refused to move. Clara took these challenges seriously, always thinking ahead, planning the next steps, and making sure everyone was safe. Lydia was more impulsive, sometimes wandering too far or taking risks that made Clara's heart race. Yet, these challenges also brought out the best in the sisters. Clara's careful planning kept them on track, while Lydia's courage and quick thinking helped them out of tricky situations. Together, they formed a team, learning to rely on each other in ways they never had before. Along the way, Clara thought often about the man she was going to meet. She had seen a photograph, formal and serious, and read his letters, which were polite and considerate. But she knew that no letter or image could truly prepare her for a real encounter. She wondered what he would be like, whether he would be kind, whether his children would accept her. She also wondered if she would be able to fit into a life so different from her own, surrounded by wide-open land, hard work, and responsibilities she had never imagined. The uncertainty was daunting, but Clara reminded herself that she had faced many challenges before and had always found a way to persevere. This was just another challenge, she told herself, one that could bring growth, strength, and perhaps even happiness. The sisters also spent their evenings sharing stories and memories, talking quietly as the wagon swayed gently under the stars. Clara spoke of home, of her parents' wisdom, of the small joys of tending the garden or baking bread. Lydia spoke of dreams of adventure, of seeing new places, and of discovering the world beyond the town they had always known. These conversations brought them closer, deepening the bond that would help them face the unknown ahead. Clara sometimes felt protective of Lydia, realizing how brave her sister was despite her mischievous streak. And Lydia admired Clara's steadiness, knowing that her sister's guidance would keep them both safe. As the wagon creaked along the trail, Clara could feel a mixture of emotions: fear, excitement, hope, and a strange sense of destiny. She knew that once she reached Montana, life would change forever, and she was both eager and hesitant to meet the man she was promised to marry. She looked at Lydia, who was daydreaming out the window with a mischievous smile, and felt a surge of gratitude for having her sister by her side. No matter what lay ahead, Clara knew that they would face it together, supporting each other through the trials and joys that awaited. By the end of the first week on the road, Clara had grown more confident. She had learned to navigate the wagon, care for the horses, and manage the small emergencies that arose along the way. Lydia had calmed some of her impulsiveness, learning to balance her adventurous spirit with the reality of the journey. Together, the sisters were becoming stronger, more resilient, and more connected than ever before. They laughed more easily, shared their hopes and fears, and discovered strengths they had never recognized in themselves. And yet, as they continued westward, Clara could not shake the feeling that something unexpected might happen. She had prepared for a journey of duty, responsibility, and new beginnings, but life often had a way of surprising even the most careful planners. She did not know what awaited her at the ranch, the man, the children, or the challenges of a new home, but she was determined to face it with courage, heart, and the support of her sister. With every mile, the horizon stretched further, promising change, adventure, and the unknown. And Clara, despite her nerves, felt a small spark of excitement deep in her chest, a quiet hope that this journey could be the start of something truly remarkable. The journey continued, winding through open plains, dense forests, and rolling hills that seemed to stretch endlessly toward the horizon. Each day brought new challenges and discoveries for Clara and Lydia. The sun rose early, casting a golden light across the landscape, and the sisters quickly settled into a routine. Clara would help guide the wagon, make sure the supplies were secure, and care for the horses, while Lydia explored the edges of the trail, often spotting things that Clara might have overlooked. The work was hard, but there was a sense of freedom in moving forward, away from everything familiar and into a world full of possibilities. Lydia's excitement was infectious. She would point out the wild flowers that grew along the roadside, laugh at the birds swooping overhead, and press her face against the wagon's side to see the streams and forests passing by. Clara, while more reserved, could not help but smile at her sister's enthusiasm. At times, Lydia's curiosity led them into small troubles, stepping too close to the edge of a creek or startling the horses, but Clara's careful nature and quick thinking always kept them safe. The sisters began to realize that their differences were not weaknesses. Together, they formed a team. Clara's steadiness and Lydia's courage complemented each other, helping them face the unknown trail ahead. One afternoon, as the wagon climbed a particularly steep hill, a sudden gust of wind swept across the plains. The wagon jolted, and Clara clutched the sides to steady herself. Lydia shrieked, not from fear, but from exhilaration, her hair flying wildly in the wind. Clara laughed despite herself, feeling the thrill of being alive in such a vast, untamed place. But there was also a seriousness to the journey. They were far from home, and every day brought new obstacles. The horses had to be tended, food had to be rationed carefully, and the sisters needed to be constantly alert to the dangers of the trail. Clara felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, knowing that one small mistake could create big problems. Yet she also felt pride in how capable she had become. The nights were different from anything the sisters had known. They slept under the open sky, wrapped in blankets, with the stars shining above like tiny lanterns scattered across black velvet. The air was cool and crisp, and the sounds of the land, the chirping of crickets, the rustle of leaves, the occasional call of an owl, lulled them to sleep. Clara often stayed awake a little longer than Lydia, listening to the sounds, thinking about the journey, and wondering what awaited them at the ranch. She worried about meeting the rancher, about whether she could live up to his expectations, and about how the children might accept her. But she also felt a quiet sense of hope. Perhaps this journey was not just about duty, but about discovering who she could become. As they traveled, the sisters met other travelers along the trail. Some were families moving west to start new lives, others were traders or ranch hands journeying between towns. Clara was careful and polite in her interactions, always mindful of safety and manners, while Lydia was more outgoing and fearless. She would approach strangers with confidence, asking questions, learning stories, and sharing laughter. Through these encounters, the sisters learned more about the land they were crossing, the challenges it posed, the kindness of strangers, and the opportunities it offered. Each day brought lessons in patience, resilience, and courage. One morning, the wagon encountered a swollen river, rising from recent rains. The water rushed quickly, making it dangerous to cross. Clara examined the situation carefully, measuring the depth and strength of the current. Lydia wanted to rush forward, eager to test their courage, but Clara insisted on caution. They waited, watching other travelers cross safely and learning from their methods. Clara directed the horses with skill, ensuring that the wagon remained stable as it slowly made its way through the water. Lydia cheered when they reached the other side safely, and Clara allowed herself a small smile of relief. Moments like these tested their patience and judgment, but they also strengthened their confidence. The sisters were learning not only about the land, but about themselves. As the days passed, The sisters' personalities became more defined. Clara's carefulness was paired with compassion. She often took the time to help others along the trail, offering food or advice to those in need. Lydia's boldness became tempered with thoughtfulness. She learned to assess risks more carefully, while still embracing adventure. Their bond deepened with each mile traveled. They laughed together, shared their worries, and confided in one another about their fears and hopes. Clara sometimes wondered if she would be ready to face the rancher's world, but Lydia's courage reminded her that they were capable of more than they had imagined. The journey was not without moments of fear. One evening, as the wagon passed through a dense forest, the shadows seemed to move in ways that made the sisters nervous. Strange sounds echoed around them. Branches snapping, distant calls of animals, and the wind whispering through the trees. Clara held the reins tightly, her heart beating fast, while Lydia pressed close to her sister, her usual confidence shaken for the first time. They stayed alert until they reached an open clearing, where the moonlight illuminated the path ahead. In that quiet moment, they realized how much they relied on each other. Clara's steadiness helped calm Lydia's nerves, and Lydia's courage reminded Clara that fear could be faced, not avoided. Food was another challenge. The supplies in the wagon had to be rationed carefully, and sometimes they went hungry for hours until the next town or friendly traveler could provide something to eat. Clara prepared meals with care, stretching small portions to feed them both, while Lydia learned to help and improvise. They roasted small game, gathered wild herbs, and shared meals under the open sky. These simple moments became memories they would cherish, a taste of freedom, of adventure, and of a life lived differently from the one they had known at home. Conversations between the sisters often turned to thoughts of the future. Clara wondered what the ranch would be like, how the children might behave, and whether the rancher would be kind. Lydia dreamed of exploring the land, of learning new skills, and of discovering what life in Montana had to offer. Their discussions were filled with hope, curiosity, and a touch of nervousness. Clara sometimes worried that her careful nature would make her miss opportunities, while Lydia feared that her impulsiveness might cause trouble. But together they balanced each other, learning that both caution and courage were necessary for the journey ahead. As the trail stretched on, Clara noticed changes in herself. She was no longer the timid girl who had worried endlessly at home. She was growing stronger, more confident, and more capable. Each obstacle she overcame, each decision she made, reminded her that she could handle more than she had believed. Lydia, too, was learning. Her boldness was no longer reckless. It was thoughtful, guided by experience and the knowledge that her sister had her back. The journey was teaching them lessons that went beyond survival. It was teaching them about character, resilience, and the power of family. By the end of the second week, the sisters were approaching the edge of the plains. The land was changing. The trees became fewer, the hills steeper, and the air sharper. Clara felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. They were getting closer to Montana, closer to the ranch, and closer to the life that awaited them. She thought about the rancher, the children, and the new responsibilities she would face. She also thought about Lydia and how important it was to support her sister no matter what. The journey had already taught them so much, and Clara knew that the challenges ahead would only make them stronger. Despite the hardships, there was a sense of wonder in the sisters' journey. Each sunrise brought new beauty, each sunset a sense of accomplishment. They laughed at their mistakes, celebrated their successes, and supported each other through fear and fatigue. The trail was long and the destination uncertain, but Clara and Lydia had discovered something important. Together, they could face anything. And as the wagon rolled on with the wind in their hair and the horizon stretching endlessly before them, the sisters felt a growing excitement, a quiet hope that life in Montana would bring not only challenges but opportunities, joy, and perhaps even unexpected surprises. After weeks of travel, Clara and Lydia finally saw the ranch in the distance. It was larger than Clara had imagined, a sprawling property with wide fields, a big farmhouse, and barns that seemed to reach the sky. Smoke rose gently from the chimney, curling into the crisp morning air, and the sound of livestock created a lively backdrop. Clara's heart pounded in her chest, not from the exertion of travel, but from nerves. This was the moment she had been preparing for, the moment her entire journey had been leading to. She straightened her dress, smoothed her hair, and took a deep breath. Lydia, of course, was nearly bouncing in excitement, her eyes wide as she pointed at the horses grazing in the distance. As the wagon rolled closer, the rancher came out to meet them. He was tall and sturdy, with weathered hands and a face that showed years of hard work under the sun. His eyes were sharp, but there was a gentleness to his smile. He introduced himself politely, welcoming the sisters to the ranch and offering a hand to Clara first. She curtsied slightly, feeling a mix of nervousness and relief. Lydia followed behind, her curiosity practically visible in the way she scanned the barns, the fences, and the wide open fields. Clara had expected the rancher to focus solely on her, but she noticed that he kept glancing at Lydia as well, a small flicker of interest crossing his face that made Clara's chest tighten unexpectedly. The first few hours at the ranch were filled with introductions and explanations. The rancher's children came out to meet them, a shy boy and an energetic girl, both cautious around strangers. Clara greeted them warmly, trying to put them at ease, while Lydia immediately tried to play with them, asking questions and laughing freely. Clara could see the tension in the children slowly easing as Lydia's cheerful energy filled the air. But she also noticed the rancher watching Lydia in a way that made her uneasy. Clara had been the one chosen for this life, the one the letters had promised. Yet somehow, Lydia's presence was creating a ripple she had not anticipated. Clara tried to focus on her duties. She helped unpack the wagon, arranged the rooms in the farmhouse, and began preparing a simple meal for everyone. She was careful to show her competence, wanting to prove that she could manage the household as expected. Lydia, meanwhile, wandered the property, exploring the barns, petting the animals, and asking endless questions about the ranch. Her curiosity and enthusiasm were irresistible, and the rancher found himself explaining tasks to her, showing her how to feed the horses, mend fences, and even drive the smaller carts. Clara watched silently, a knot forming in her stomach. This was not what she had expected. She had imagined being the center of attention, the one the rancher would rely on. Instead, Lydia was drawing his attention, and Clara wasn't sure what to do about it. As evening fell, the family gathered for dinner. Clara served the meal carefully, ensuring that everything was in order, while Lydia chattered with the children about their day, laughing freely and encouraging them to join in games. The rancher complimented Clara on the meal, acknowledging her effort, but it was Lydia's boldness and cheer that seemed to light up the room. Clara forced a smile, feeling both pride and unease. She had always been careful, meticulous, and responsible, yet it seemed that the warmth and liveliness Lydia brought were just as valuable in this new environment. That night, as Clara prepared the guest room for her own stay, she reflected on the day. She felt a swirl of emotions, excitement, nervousness, and a strange sense of worry. Lydia's energy and charm were undeniable, and it was clear that she had made an impression on the rancher and the children alike. Clara wondered what this meant for her own place in the family. Was there room for her here, or would she always be in the shadow of her younger sister? She shook her head, telling herself that she must focus on doing her best. This was her chance to start a new life, and she could not allow doubt or jealousy to cloud her judgment. The next morning brought new tasks. Clara was given a list of chores, From cleaning the house to helping with the younger children and preparing meals, she worked diligently, rising early to begin her day before the sun had fully warmed the fields. Lydia, as usual, took a different approach. She followed the rancher out into the pastures, learning to care for the livestock, repair fences, and manage the land. The rancher praised her efforts, showing her how to handle tasks that Clara had never expected to do. Clara noticed this with a mixture of admiration and unease. Lydia was learning quickly, showing courage and adaptability, and the rancher seemed genuinely impressed by her. Clara reminded herself that she must continue to focus on her responsibilities and not be distracted by comparisons. Despite the growing tension, Clara and Lydia continued to support each other. They shared quiet moments in the evenings, discussing the day, laughing at minor mishaps, and planning for the next. Clara admired Lydia's bravery, while Lydia respected Clara's careful planning. Together, they navigated the complex dynamics of the ranch, learning how to balance their personalities with the expectations of the rancher and the needs of the children. But even as they worked together, Clara could not ignore the subtle changes in the rancher's behavior. He seemed to notice Lydia in ways he had not noticed her before, and while he remained polite and respectful toward Clara, she could sense that the connection between him and Lydia was growing. One afternoon, a small crisis tested them all. A young foal had become trapped near the edge of a pasture, unable to free itself from the tangle of fencing. Clara tried to help, but her careful approach was too slow to reach the struggling animal. Lydia, without hesitation, ran forward, working quickly and fearlessly to free the foal. The rancher rushed to assist, and together they managed to rescue the young horse. Clara watched, a mix of relief and admiration washing over her. Lydia had shown courage and quick thinking, and the rancher's approval was clear in the way he smiled and nodded. Clara realized that this moment revealed something important. Courage, kindness, and initiative mattered as much as careful planning and diligence. As the days passed, Clara began to notice other small, unexpected moments. The rancher would ask Lydia for advice on tasks, consult her opinion on minor decisions, and seek her company during breaks. Lydia, ever cheerful, seemed unaware of the attention she was receiving, but Clara could see it clearly. She felt a mixture of pride, relief, and an unexpected twinge of worry. She had come to Montana expecting to fulfill a role, but the dynamics were already shifting in ways she had not anticipated. Clara realized that life was rarely as simple as planning and following instructions. Sometimes it was unpredictable, shaped by personalities, chance encounters, and small moments that could change everything. Even so, Clara refused to be discouraged. She continued to focus on her responsibilities, striving to create a comfortable home, care for the children, and prove that she could be trusted. She found satisfaction in small accomplishments: a meal perfectly prepared, a room arranged neatly, a child comforted after a fright. These moments reminded her of why she had undertaken this journey, and they strengthened her resolve to succeed. At the same time, Clara's respect for Lydia grew. Her sister's courage, charm, and adaptability were impressive, and Clara realized that both of them had unique gifts to contribute to the ranch. One evening, as the sun set behind the distant hills, Clara and Lydia stood on the porch, looking out over the wide fields. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, the animals grazing peacefully below. Clara took a deep breath, feeling a sense of calm. Despite the challenges and unexpected developments, she knew that they were capable of navigating this new life. Lydia laughed softly, pointing out a family of deer in the distance, and Clara smiled, realizing that their journey had already taught them much about courage, adaptability, and the importance of supporting one another. Yet, even in that calm moment, Clara sensed that the days ahead would bring more challenges. The rancher's interest in Lydia, the children's adjustment to the new household, and the responsibilities of ranch life would all test her in ways she had never imagined. She knew that she would have to remain strong, patient, and thoughtful, relying on her experience, her sister, and her inner strength to navigate the coming days. And as the stars began to twinkle above the Montana sky, Clara felt a quiet determination settle in her heart. She had arrived at the ranch, and life was already changing in ways she could not have predicted, but she was ready to face it all. The arrival at the ranch had marked the beginning of a new chapter, filled with responsibilities, discoveries, and unexpected connections. Clara understood that life would not be easy, but it could be rewarding. She also realized that Lydia's presence was not a threat, but a blessing in disguise, a reminder that courage, joy, and curiosity were as important as careful planning and diligence. And with that thought, Clara felt a renewed sense of purpose. The journey was far from over, but together the sisters were ready to face whatever challenges and surprises awaited them in their new home. Life at the ranch settled into a rhythm, but it was far from easy. Clara rose with the sun each morning, tending to the children, preparing breakfast, and checking the household chores. Every corner of the farmhouse demanded attention, from the dusty floors to the fresh linens. Lydia, on the other hand, had fully embraced the outdoor work, following the rancher into the pastures to help with feeding, herding, and repairing fences. Both sisters worked hard, but the contrast between them was becoming more noticeable. Clara's careful diligence ensured the house ran smoothly, while Lydia's courage and enthusiasm brought energy to the ranch and a smile to the rancher's face. One morning, a crisis struck the ranch. A sudden storm swept across the plains, heavy rain mixing with strong winds that bent the trees and rattled the barn doors. The livestock grew restless, frightened by the thunder and flashes of lightning. Clara immediately went to check on the children, keeping them safe and calm inside the house, while Lydia ran outside to secure the animals, tying loose ropes and calming the horses. The rancher joined her, directing her efforts and guiding her hands when a frightened colt tried to bolt. Clara watched from the window, her heart pounding with worry for her sister, but also pride. Lydia was brave, handling the chaos with confidence, and the rancher clearly admired her courage and quick thinking. After the storm passed, the ranch looked battered. Fences were down in some areas, hay had been scattered, and a few animals had strayed from their pens. The sisters set to work immediately. Clara organized repairs inside the house, washed the mud off the floors, and prepared a hearty meal to restore everyone's strength. Lydia ventured out with the rancher, working to mend the fences and check on the animals. They were exhausted by the day's end, but the sense of accomplishment was immense. Clara and Lydia shared a quiet moment in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, their hands sore and their clothes damp from the work. They laughed softly, grateful to have each other, knowing that without their combined efforts, the storm could have caused far greater damage. Despite the shared successes, tension began to build beneath the surface. Clara could not ignore the way the rancher watched Lydia, or how he sought her opinion on practical matters and praised her energy. Clara had always believed her role was clear. She was the bride, the caretaker of the household, the one the children would grow to trust. Yet now, the attention Lydia received left her feeling uneasy. She reminded herself that this was not about jealousy, but about understanding her place in the family. She had to remain patient, thoughtful, and supportive, even if it meant stepping back at times. One afternoon, the rancher asked Clara to help him with some planning for the upcoming season. They walked through the fields, measuring land and discussing crops and grazing schedules. Clara appreciated being included in the decision-making, but she could not help noticing Lydia nearby, chatting easily with the ranch hands, laughing at a joke, and moving with ease across the property. Clara realized that her careful planning and attention to detail, while valuable, lacked the warmth and spontaneity Lydia brought. She began to see that perhaps there was more than one way to contribute to the ranch's success, and that each of them had unique strengths that mattered. The children also began to show their preferences. The younger girl, full of curiosity, was drawn to Lydia's playful nature, wanting to follow her around the barn and join in her adventures. The boy, quieter and more reserved, observed both sisters carefully, learning from Clara's patience and Lydia's boldness. Clara realized that their happiness was tied not just to her efforts, but to the balance between her steadiness and Lydia's liveliness. She understood that raising the children, caring for the household, and maintaining the ranch would require cooperation, not competition, and that her relationship with Lydia was crucial to their shared success. Then came a challenge that tested their resolve even further. A neighboring ranch had a sick cow, and the rancher needed help treating it. Clara hesitated at first, unsure of the livestock care beyond minor chores, but Lydia immediately volunteered. Together, Lydia and the rancher carefully examined the cow, administered medicine, and ensured it was comfortable. Clara watched and took mental notes, learning quickly from their teamwork. By the end of the day, the cow was stable, and the sisters had learned valuable skills they could use in the future. Clara felt proud of their teamwork and grateful that Lydia's courage had made the difference. As the days went by, the sisters noticed subtle changes in the rancher's behavior. He continued to show respect for Clara's work in the house, but there were moments when his gaze lingered on Lydia as she moved through the pastures, her laughter carrying across the fields. Clara tried to hide her unease, reminding herself that family and responsibility were more important than fleeting emotions. Yet she could not deny that something was shifting, that the connection between Lydia and the rancher was growing. Clara reflected quietly in the evenings, journaling her thoughts, and reminding herself to remain patient and supportive, even if it was difficult. Despite the emotional complexity, Clara found moments of joy. She began teaching the children to cook and clean, finding satisfaction in their progress and the smiles that came from their accomplishments. Lydia shared stories of their journey, playing games and showing the children how to care for animals. The rancher occasionally joined them, and Clara noticed that while he was often quiet around her, he laughed freely with Lydia. Clara reminded herself that happiness came in many forms, and that supporting her sister could be just as important as fulfilling her own role. The turning point came one morning when the rancher asked both sisters to help with a new task, preparing a small area for planting fresh vegetables. Clara planned carefully, measuring the land and organizing tools, while Lydia dove into the work with energy and creativity, finding ways to make the planting more efficient and even enjoyable. Together, they worked alongside the rancher, and the task was completed more quickly and beautifully than anyone could have expected. Clara realized in that moment that their differences were not weaknesses. They were strengths that, when combined, made the ranch stronger and the family happier. Yet, with this realization came clarity about the future. Clara understood that while she was capable and dependable, Lydia's boldness and warmth had created a connection with the rancher that could not be ignored. She felt a mix of emotions: pride in her sister, satisfaction in her own achievements, and a quiet sadness that the life she had imagined might not unfold exactly as she had planned. But Clara also felt a sense of peace. She knew that she could contribute in her own way, that the ranch could thrive with both sisters playing their roles, and that love and happiness could take unexpected forms. A small but meaningful moment happened one evening when the sisters were washing the dishes together. Clara commented on how well Lydia had handled the livestock earlier, and Lydia laughed, teasing her sister about being too serious. Clara smiled, realizing that this teasing was a sign of trust and closeness. They talked quietly about the changes in the ranch and the rancher's attention to Lydia. Clara admitted that she had noticed it, and Lydia, ever thoughtful, reassured her that their bond as sisters mattered above all else. Clara felt comforted by this, understanding that no matter how things unfolded with the rancher, she and Lydia had each other, and that was more important than any expectation or role. By the end of the week, the ranch was running smoothly despite the challenges. The storm had passed, the livestock was cared for, the fields were tended, and the household was organized. Clara had proven her skill and patience, Lydia had shown courage and initiative, and the rancher had begun to see the value of both sisters. It was clear that life at the ranch would be a mix of hard work, learning, and moments of unexpected joy. Clara understood that her role was evolving, not the one she had imagined when she first left home, but one that was meaningful, necessary, and connected to the well-being of her family. Clara reflected on everything that had happened since they arrived: the storm, the work, the rancher's attention to Lydia, the children's reactions. All of it had taught her lessons about patience, courage, and love. She realized that happiness did not always follow plans or expectations. Sometimes it grew from adaptability, understanding, and the willingness to embrace change. She smiled quietly to herself, feeling stronger and wiser than when she had first arrived. And as the sun set over the Montana plains, casting long shadows across the fields, Clara knew that the coming days would continue to challenge her. She was ready to face whatever trials and joys awaited her, supporting her sister, caring for the children, and contributing to the ranch in her own meaningful way. Life at the ranch was not what she had expected, but it was real, full of lessons, love, and unexpected possibilities. And Clara, standing beside Lydia on the porch, watching the colors of the sky deepen into night, understood that sometimes the greatest strength came from unity, courage, and the quiet wisdom of the heart. The morning sun rose gently over the Montana plains, spilling golden light across the ranch. Clara stood on the porch for a moment, taking in the view. The fields stretched endlessly, dotted with livestock grazing quietly and the distant hills glowing in the early light. She felt a deep sense of calm, though her heart carried a mixture of emotions: satisfaction, reflection, and anticipation. Over the weeks she had spent at the ranch, she had learned more about herself, her sister, and the unpredictable ways of life than she could have imagined. The journey that had begun with nervousness and uncertainty was now leading to clarity and understanding. The rancher approached, tipping his hat politely. He spoke kindly to Clara, thanking her for all the work she had done to maintain the household and care for the children. His words carried warmth and appreciation, and Clara felt her chest lift with pride. She had worked hard to prove her worth, and though the life she had imagined might not be unfolding exactly as she had expected, she recognized the importance of her role. Clara had brought stability, organization, and care to the ranch, ensuring that the home ran smoothly even when storms and challenges tested them all. Meanwhile, Lydia was already outside, tending to the animals with confidence and joy. She laughed easily with the ranch hands and the children, showing her energy and courage in every task she performed. The rancher watched her with admiration, his respect and fondness for her obvious, infamous. Clara observed quietly, feeling a complex mixture of emotions. She had noticed the connection between them long ago, and she now understood that Lydia's natural warmth, bravery, and charm had captured the rancher's heart. Yet there was no bitterness in Clara's feelings, only a calm understanding that happiness sometimes arrived in unexpected ways, and that her sister's joy was as important as her own. Later that morning, the sisters were called together by the rancher. The children followed, curious and wide-eyed. He spoke with honesty and kindness, acknowledging the hard work and dedication both sisters had shown since their arrival. Then he looked directly at Lydia, expressing gratitude for her courage, her willingness to help, and the positive energy she brought to the ranch. Clara listened quietly, her heart swelling with pride for her sister, who beamed at the recognition. The rancher then asked Lydia if she would be willing to make the ranch her permanent home, and Lydia's eyes shone with happiness. She nodded eagerly, her laughter filling the open air, and Clara felt a quiet sense of relief and contentment. Though Lydia would become the rancher's bride, Clara's place in the ranch was still vital. She understood that her careful planning, patience, and thoughtful nature provided the foundation that allowed the family to thrive. The children trusted her, the household ran smoothly under her guidance, and the rancher relied on her steady presence. Clara realized that life was not about competing for attention, but about finding one's unique contribution and embracing it fully. She smiled, feeling proud of her role and confident in the way she could support her family without needing to overshadow anyone else. In the following weeks, life at the ranch settled into a joyful routine. Mornings were filled with chores, field work, and caring for the animals. Clara taught the children new skills, helping them become more confident and independent. Lydia worked alongside the rancher, learning more about the land, repairing fences, and guiding the younger animals. Evenings were for shared meals, laughter, and storytelling. The sisters continued to support each other, combining Clara's carefulness and Lydia's courage to create a home that was both stable and full of energy. The rancher's respect and affection for both of them became evident in small ways: a nod of approval, a shared laugh, or a moment of encouragement. Clara found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. She remembered the long days on the trail, the rough roads, the unpredictable weather, and the countless small challenges that had tested their patience and resilience. She thought of the lessons learned along the way: courage, adaptability, the importance of cooperation, and the power of love and understanding. Each experience had shaped them, preparing them for the life they now shared on the ranch. Clara realized that every hardship, every sleepless night, and every moment of doubt had been worth it, for it had brought them to a place of belonging, purpose, and fulfillment. One afternoon, the sisters were walking through the fields, discussing plans for the garden and upcoming tasks. Lydia laughed as she recalled a funny incident with a mischievous calf, and Clara joined in, feeling warmth and joy that had been missing in the earliest days of their journey. The rancher approached, smiling as he observed their teamwork. He praised their efforts, noting how well they complemented each other and how their combined strengths had made the ranch stronger. Clara felt a sense of pride and satisfaction, knowing that their partnership was appreciated and that their contributions mattered equally, even if they were different in nature. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange, pink, and purple, Clara felt a quiet sense of peace. The ranch was safe and productive, the children were happy and growing, and her sister had found a love that was genuine and kind. Clara understood that happiness was not always about fulfilling a predetermined plan. It was about embracing life as it came, appreciating the roles we are given, and finding joy in unexpected places. She felt gratitude for her sister, for the rancher, for the children, and for the journey that had shaped them all. One evening, Clara found herself sitting on the porch alone, watching the stars appear in the night sky. She thought about home, about her parents, and about the road that had brought her here. She realized that she had grown stronger, wiser, and more confident than she had ever been. Life on the ranch had taught her lessons that went beyond chores and responsibilities. She had learned about patience, courage, the importance of family, and the beauty of selflessness. Clara smiled, feeling a quiet pride in the woman she had become, knowing that she could face any challenge with grace and determination. The rancher joined her quietly, sitting down beside her without a word at first. They watched the stars together, a comfortable silence settling between them. Clara felt a sense of respect for him, recognizing the hard work, responsibility, and kindness he had shown in guiding the ranch and supporting his family. The rancher thanked Clara for her dedication, for her carefulness, and for the love she had shown to the children and the household. Clara accepted his gratitude with humility, feeling valued and appreciated for her contributions, even though her path had not followed the original plan she had imagined. Lydia returned from the barn, laughing softly as she recounted a small adventure with the animals. She joined them on the porch, her energy bright and infectious. Clara watched her, feeling a deep sense of joy. Lydia had found love, happiness, and purpose in her new home, and Clara knew that she had played a role in supporting her sister's journey. The rancher looked at both sisters with warmth in his eyes, acknowledging the unique contributions each had made to the family and the ranch. Clara felt a quiet contentment, knowing that harmony had been achieved, even if it had come in an unexpected way. Over the next months, life at the ranch continued with steady purpose. The garden flourished under the sisters' care, the livestock thrived, and the children grew confident and happy. Clara took pride in the household she had helped organize, in the lessons she had taught the children, and in the calm stability she had brought to the family. Lydia continued to explore the land with courage and joy, learning new skills and building a strong bond with the rancher. The sisters supported each other in every task, sharing laughter, stories, and advice. Their bond grew stronger than ever, built on love, trust, and shared experience. Eventually, Clara understood something important. Life did not have to follow the path she had originally imagined to be meaningful. She had discovered that happiness and fulfillment could take many forms, and that her strength, patience, and care had a lasting impact on those she loved. Lydia's joy and the rancher's affection were blessings, and Clara realized that supporting them was as valuable as any role she could play. Together, the family thrived, each member contributing in their own way, and each finding purpose, joy, and love in the life they had built. As the sun set on another day, Clara looked out over the Montana plains, feeling a sense of accomplishment and peace. She thought of the journey that had begun with fear and uncertainty, the lessons learned along the trail, the challenges of the ranch, and the growth of her sister and herself. Life had changed in ways she had never expected, but it was beautiful, full of love, learning, and opportunity. Clara knew that she had found her place in the world, not as a central figure seeking recognition, but as a steady, caring, and invaluable presence in a family that thrived on the strengths of all its members. And as the stars appeared above, twinkling like tiny lanterns in the dark sky, Clara felt a quiet joy and gratitude. The journey had been long, the challenges many, but the destination had brought a home filled with love, happiness, and harmony. She smiled softly, knowing that life's greatest lessons often came in unexpected ways, and that true fulfillment was found in embracing change, supporting loved ones, and discovering the strength and courage within oneself.